So, welcome to the online retreat. I'm sorry, I loved coming to Finland. It's a beautiful place, but what to do? I can't move out of here. So we are all in, Madnapalli is a nice, beautiful place. I'm cooling my heels for 3 months here, doing lots of online talks. You might have seen on YouTube and so on. So I see all friends. We met last year. We have talked, we have had food together, sat around the fire, so we know each other. So it's a satsang, right? So what do you want me to do today? Tell me. We have 1 hour. What do you want me to?
First, we want to say something to you. Are you ready?
You want to say something?
Yes.
You want to say something? Oh,
Yes.
good, great. I'm here, open ears.
Are you ready? Om Hrim Shri Guru Bhyo Namah.
Okay. So, since we are starting the introduction and I haven't been there for a year, so I would like to start today with an interaction so that if you have to discuss something, tomorrow we'll have a talk, formal.
Yeah.
So today this is just, so if you need to discuss something and you want to talk to me, you're free to do that, and after 40 minutes or 45 minutes, then we'll have a short meditation for 10 minutes.
Okay, sounds good.
Huh?
Yeah, sounds
Is that
very
okay?
good. Yeah.
Good. So then today's session will be over and then tomorrow we start again. So what do you want me to talk about tomorrow?
So we thought that today we have a set of questions to you, like
Okay, great.
you, like we did
Great,
last year.
great.
So
great.
tomorrow morning we thought that you can pick up a theme that you just want to talk to our group. So
I can pick up? I'm free?
Yes,
Okay,
you're
great.
so-
So I know what to say. Yeah, great. That's right.
And you can think about what you want to say, since you
Sure,
already know the group. So then you can think, okay,
Yes.
these guys, they need something,
Okay.
something that you
We'll
can
do that. We'll do that. Yeah, I know the groove. So right, start. 1, 2, 3.
yeah. Okay, we will start now.
Yeah, so then let's start right on. I've been thinking, because we have been also working with theosophy and studying Buddhism and different traditions, and now we are with you, and we are so fond of this particular tradition and the ways of practice. But something I've been thinking about is that in theosophy they talk about initiations as markers of advancement on the path to enlightenment. And in Buddhism they have the 4 stages of enlightenment. In Sufism they call it the stations of the soul. You probably also know this because you have Sufi.
Good homework. Good homework, Hans.
and Teresa of Avila in the early Christendom was also talking about stations of the 7 mansions. And then you have Zen Buddhism talking about the 10 ox herding pictures, which is also very much markers of where are you exactly on the path. And so I wonder, is there anything in your tradition that has a similar markings where we can look and see where am I on the path to realizing the self?
Okay. So when I say my tradition, we need not isolate my tradition from other traditions. I don't look at it that way. Say, well, my tradition, if you ask, it comes from different sources. Look, even though I was initiated into Kriya Yoga by Maheshwarnath Babaji, yes, Maheshwar Nath Babaji came from the Nath Sampradaya. The Nath, N-A-T-H, Nath, the Nath Sampradaya, are the people who saved all the yogic scriptures from being lost. So, while I have studied Kriya Yoga, which comes from Sri Guru Babaji, Mahavatar Babaji, while Maheshwar Nath Babaji, my personal guru, was an intimate disciple of Sri Guru Babaji, but he had already been in the Nath tradition. So therefore, Babaji encouraged that for Babaji all traditions are the same. For Sri Guru Babaji there is no tradition. Even though Kriya Yoga is a technique taught to us, from the philosophical point of view, he embraces all the traditions. That is, in fact, and since Maheshwar Nath Babaji was trained by him, I have sat with him and talked extensively on the Buddhist tradition, on the Zen tradition, and in the Buddhist tradition, both the Mahayana and the Sutrayana and the Dzogchen. So, it's wide. The canvas is very big. I try to choose specifically certain ways of looking at it depending on the group of people and sometimes also individuals. Yeah. Now I'll come back to that stations. I'm just explaining. Yeah. So I'm not missing the point. So therefore, so the Kriya Yoga tradition is one. The Kriya Yoga tradition basically is also from, in a way, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. In anywhere in the world, the standard textbook which gives everything in concise, edited aphorisms is the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Well, people call it Ashtanga Yoga Sutras, but nowhere in the Yoga Sutras does Patanjali use the word Ashtanga. Nowhere. Of course, there are 8 angas. You know that: Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi. 8 angas. Yes, the practice. But that is practice. That comes only in the Sadhana Pada, the practice section, the chapter on practice. It has, 4 sections. There is the Samadhi Pada. The first section is a psychological and philosophical discussion of what is Samadhi before you go into the practice. And the next chapter is the Sadhana Pada. And after that comes the Vibhuti Pada, which means the chapter on what are the special capacities developed in an individual through sadhana. And the last chapter of the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is the Kaivalya Pada, the total freedom. Now Kaivalya comes from the word Kevala, which means only one. So, in Kaivalya, the yogi realized there is nothing but the Purusha. Well, the Vedantin might call it Brahman, but the yogi calls it Purusha, because yoga is derived from Sankhya, where it's called Purusha, consciousness. Only one consciousness. There are no different consciousness. When you reach there, you realize there is nothing but that. Okay. So, this is the yoga. Now, why I said this is, in the Yoga Sutras, I hope I am not going too technical.
Yeah.
Is it okay?
No, it's perfect.
Now, in the Yoga Sutras, the word that Patanjali, the author, uses for the science of practice is Kriya Yoga. This is interesting. He says in the chapter called Sadhana Pada, if you read it later on, you will see, he says this, what I am going to tell you is Kriya Yoga. He calls it Kriya Yoga, although the actual technique of Kriya which we practice is not mentioned, which cannot be mentioned. Of course, in text you have to learn it from somebody. But he calls it Kriya Yoga. He says, Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. This is how he explains. So the Kriya is part of Patanjali. Patanjali's Yoga Darshana is part of Sankhya philosophy of Kapila. very ancient philosophy. It is an atheistic philosophy. Sankhya has no God sitting there and creating the universe. It happens through natural process. There is one Purusha, which is consciousness separate from the physical world, Prakriti. And the whole process of Sankhya is to free yourself from the conditionings of Prakriti so that you realize you are only consciousness. There is no creator God out there. Somebody sitting there making people and throwing them down and then sending COVID and making them suffer. No, nothing is there. So, now, so you see, in the yoga, there is mention of Sankhya, there is mention of Kriya. Now, you also mentioned the Buddhist tradition. Now, the Buddhists also have a certain yogic section, which is called the Yogacara school of Buddhism. Yogacara. In fact, some of the texts of the Yogacara are earlier than Patanjali. Many people don't know this. Some of the texts of the Yogacara school are even at least 100 years before Patanjali. Although the Patanjali mentioned in the Yoga Sutras and the original Patanjali may not be the same, because the original Patanjali is always depicted as half snake and half man. This part is man and this part is snake. So I don't think it's a human being. I think it's an extraterrestrial of some kind who came to teach yoga. I don't think such beings exist here right now. So anyway, that's controversial. We'll not go into that. So what I'm trying to say is that the Yogacara school of Buddhism, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, Kriya Yoga and Sankhya are all linked together. Now, if you ask me, are the Upanishadic teachings and Vedanta also linked? I would say yes, because look at Vedanta. It says, realize first that what you see may not be what you actually think it is. So you keep analyzing, no, this can't be that. So finally you come to a point where you cannot go any further. No way you can negate. And when you cannot negate anymore, it's just pure consciousness. And according to Vedanta, that's the only thing that exists. Everything else is an appearance. This is Vedantic theory. Sankhya doesn't believe that it is an appearance. It is real, but it's a different reality. So now look, in Kaivalya, the yogi says, I am alone, there is nothing else in this universe, there is only the Purusha. Not I as Hans and I as M, but in the universal context. Vedanta says in the ultimate moksha, freedom, there is only the Brahman, there is nothing else existing. We are also aiming to reach that through Kriya. We are deconditioning, balancing our pranas and reaching a point where we can look beyond limitations. We are all going there, right? Okay. So what I'm trying to say, there is no harm in studying different traditions. It's okay, perfectly all right. And now you come to the other part of Buddhism. Now there is the Sutrayana. The Mahayana textbooks which teach about Vajrayana Buddhism in Tibet, they came very late. The only text we have is the Diamond Sutra, Sadharma Pundarika, which the only teachings that Buddha gave personally. And the only exercise that he referred to as a spiritual training is Vipassana, which is breathing in and out and watching the breath. He has no more mentioned anything else. Of course, Buddha said the root of all sorrow is desire. And it's difficult to follow. The root of all sorrow is desire, and nirvana is cessation of sorrow for all mankind. Philosophically, he said that. But the practices which the Tibetan Buddhists have, which is the Vajrayana practices. We don't have time now to discuss the root of how it started in Tibet. Then we will have to sit for 2 hours. So, but the Vajrayana teaching of the Buddhist tradition, starting from the Lamas on down, is also reflected in the Yogacara teachings of the yogic texts. So there is a meeting point there also. You see that? You see that. One day I will explain, if we have time, how this Buddhist teachings of Vajrayana came into Tibet. Let's not go into. Okay. Now the other part of Buddhist literature is Dzogchen. Now Dzogchen is the original Buddhism that first came into Tibet, brought by Padmasambhava. Now the Padmasambhava started the first order of the Buddhist yogis, which the finest part of that is actually Dzogchen. They are called the Elohats, the first order of the Buddhists. Now Padmasambhava was from Afghanistan, but then it was part of Greater India, like Bamini, where the Buddhist statues were broken down recently, some years back. So Buddhism was spread all over in that area. So he came from there, from Udyan. And he taught this teaching, one, the Vajrayana teachings, and for the more advanced people, the Dzogchen teachings. Now the Dzogchen teachings, they call it instantaneous illumination. Now, to reach there, one need to go through other practices, of course. You can't suddenly go there. Yeah. So, in this little time we have, I want to tell you a little Dzogchen story, which illustrates what Dzogchen is talking about ultimately, after going different steps. There was a disciple of a Dzogchen teacher who was with him for 13 years with the teacher, with the guru. And he did all kinds of practices of the Vajrayana which were taught to him. But he was not finding the illumination, the enlightenment which he was seeking. So in the 13th year, after 13 years, 14th year, one day they were walking along. He was walking and the teacher was on the horse. He said, "What is this, teacher? I have been with you for so many years. Some things have happened, but I haven't found how long will I stay with you? I think I need to find somebody else. Well, you've been teaching me for 13 years, nothing is happening to me." Master said, "Okay." He said, "Will you obey me all the time?" He said, "Yes, I'll obey you, whatever you say. But I've been obeying for 13 years. He says, "Just once more." He said, "Okay." So he showed him a big bag, a cloth bag. He said, "You see all those stones lying there, put them all into the bag. Fill it up, tie it. It should be full, it should be huge. Now I'll help you to put it on your shoulders." He said, "Okay. How do you feel?" He said, "It's terrible, it's so heavy." He said, "Yeah, now climb that hill with the sack." He said, "Climb the hill with the sack, okay." He said, so he slowly climbed with great difficulty and went to the top of the hill. And on the top of the hill there was nothing but a big tree with shade, single tree. And he was here standing because he can't put it down because the master said carry, so he was carrying. Now the master said throw it, then he'll throw it, not otherwise. So obedient. So he's waiting there for the master. The master is not, he's almost dead because of the weight and the tiredness. He thinks he's going to die. The master rides up on the horse and says, "Throw the bag down." That's all, throw the bag down. So he throws, then he sits under the tree and says, "I found it." You know what I mean? It's the burdens that we carry, physical, mental, psychological, religious, philosophical, that weighs and stops us from being free. That freedom is called Dzogchen. So, while the Dzogchen Buddhists call it Dzogchen, in Vedanta it's called moksha. Coming to the Sufis, in Vedanta it's called moksha, in yoga it's called kaivalya, and in Buddhist circles it's also called nirvana. Now, what do Sufis call it? They have a very peculiar term. First, let me tell you, no Sufi will say I am a Sufi. A Sufi is understood by the way he lives and the way he behaves and what he does. Not by, in fact, the word Sufi, we won't have time now. Sometime we'll do that elaborately. The word Sufi has to be looked at carefully. People think it means Suf is wool, so people who wore, that's only one of the definitions. It means something else. Since we don't have much time, let me add a little hint to this. There is a pranayam performed by the Sufis. It's like this. So they may also be called Sufis because of that. Anyway, we'll do that later, some point. We'll have a complete session on Sufi. Then only you can discuss. It's wide, too much. So anyway, so just remember also that the Sufis say that it is not the words that the master says that is important, but the effect it has on others. Which means what? One word may have different effects in different people. Right? Okay. So, what do the Sufis call nirvana? There's a very, very strange word. They call it fana fil haq. Fana in the Arabic language means total annihilation. Total. Fana means gone. Everything is gone. Total annihilation. Nothing exists. Fil haq, except the truth. Haq is truth. So when the Sufi says fana fil haq, that is the last. You said station when you talked. In the Sufi language, a station is called a muqam. Muqam, M-U-Q-A-M, muqam. So after all the muqams, all the stations have been travelled, then you finally reach fana. And all that remains then is the truth, fana fil haq. There is no you there. There is only that. Now, there's a little story told about, one of the most famous Sufis, especially known in the West, was Jalaluddin Rumi, who wrote this great text called the Majnavi. It's poems, Majnavi. So there is a story in the Majnavi. The disciple, the devotee is told that God is sitting inside a room, inside a cave, but the door is closed. So he goes there and stands outside and says, "Hello there," in his own language. And from inside a voice comes, and the voice says, "Who is there?" He says, "It is me, so and so, Jalaluddin." He said, "No time for you, go back." So he goes back, comes again. It is repeated 2 times. Third time he comes as a wise guy. So the question is again, "Who is there?" He says, "It is you." Then the door opens and he says, "Come." This is the last station of the Sufis. So, you have to go up step by step to different muqams, stations, as the Sufis call it, stations. Now, in our tradition, which means my particular tradition, I am now trying to separate it from this whole maze. Each station is measured by the capacity to meditate, the capacity to be calm under all circumstances, not be agitated under all circumstances. I'm talking about one side of the other. And not be concerned about praise or blame. Tulya ninda stutir mauni. The mauni, the yogi, the rishi is one for whom praise and blame are the same. Doesn't care. And sukha dukkha, pain and pleasure are the same. And he is a sthita prajna, which means no matter what happens, his mind remains steady. We call this station the middle station because it is the taking off point from which you have to go to the next levels. And if you connect it with Kriya, or if you connect it with Satchakra Nirupana, the chakras, this stage can happen only after your awareness has ascended from the Manipura and come to the heart center. So when you say, I have reached the station of the heart, then I have transcended all these things that we mentioned. But that is not the end, because there are a few more stations to go. Because heart is very important, the anahat is very important. The danger there sometimes is that one gets too caught up in an emotional hysteria. So, well, emotion is great, it is necessary for all human beings. The more love and affection you have, fine, but it should not turn into some kind of two points here to note. Maybe people haven't discussed this before, you may not have read it in a book, but I'm telling you, some of these things you can't write in books. When you have reached the station of the heart, there is strong and deep emotion. You can call it bhakti. If you want to use a Sanskrit word, bhakti. Now, there is a danger that if you are a feeble-minded and not strong enough, this bhakti might become hysteria. Then it is degenerating. And if a sudden rise can also end in a sudden drop, so it should not become mere emotionalism. You know what I mean? It should be mature love, mature feeling. You reach that mature station, not you, me, anybody, only when you have transcended the other levels where you can stay steady in the midst of all circumstances, where you are not bothered about praise or blame, and where your mind is tranquil and under all circumstances. When this happens, so by the time, when the awareness has ascended from the rest of the chakras and comes to the heart, this happens. So what do we do now? When this happens, you have to protect it because it's a very delicate affair. You should protect it in such a delicate way as a person you love, how you protect a person. Yeah? You make sure that everything is okay. You know what I mean? I hope you get the idea what I'm. It's so valuable that you're protecting it, and then you dwell in that station for some time, and from there you ascend to the rest of the stations. And when you come here, then you are no different from the divinity. You are the divinity. There is no difference between divinity and you. You're not part of divinity. There is only divinity in the Sahasrara. So, up to this point, up to the Manipura, you can measure somewhat. Where are we going? Once it comes to the heart, then the compassion, affection, the emotion takes over. But there you have to be little careful and hesitate a bit, just as a new bride enters the church so hesitatingly. You know what I mean? She doesn't walk like that. So from there, then it goes to this station. When it goes to this station, internally what happens is this emotion becomes quite balanced. There's no chance of it becoming too high or too low. It becomes kind of balanced. And what is the outward sign, manifestation of having reached here? One, anybody, I'm telling you, the voice becomes sweet and soothing. Because you have touched the goddess of speech here. Yeah. And generally, even if you say something bad to somebody, that person enjoys it like something sweet. Apart from that, the vocal cords become very good, and you can sing, you can talk, everything becomes quite musical. Because, why? Because this center, the Vishuddhi, which is called the pure center, is a center where vibrations are purified. Vishuddhi means pureness. So this emotion is purified and becomes more subtle here. And therefore it expresses itself into music. I have a feeling that Beethoven had something to do with this part of his Swadhisthana. It had awakened in him in some part. Maybe he was not consciously doing Kriya or anything, but so that is the creative part. That's where yogis produce beautiful books and write wonderful things, and it stays here. But their emotion and intellect are balanced. But they are in great depth of emotion also. But they don't allow the emotion to run away with them. They are in control of the emotions. And then from here you come to the ajna. Now this ajna is what we call in yogic language Varanasi, Banaras. It is in Varanasi. For the yogi, Varanasi is all here. For the yogi in Varanasi, the cross currents of the left and the right cross here. The Ida and the Pingala. The plus and the minus. The emotion and the intellect. They come together here. This is where they cross together. And then they go along different directions. The right goes to the left brain and the left goes to the right brain. The intuitive center and the creative center. The practical center and the creative center. You know that. There are two brains for us. Okay. So when your station comes here, then from Varanasi you have stepped into the temple of Kashi Vishwanath, the Lord of the universe. The Lord of the universe who loves to dwell in cremation grounds, but he is still called the most auspicious. Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam is his description. He is full of fragrance and the root of all energy. And Shivam, the other substitute word for Shivam in the Sanskrit language is bliss, auspiciousness and grandeur. So when you reach that station, there is no more station to go. It's done. We have reached London. Not the present London. I mean, you know, the Sufis also call that position vilayat. Now, vilayat is also a word used for London. In the olden days, you know. So, I hope we have discussed your question.
Yes, that was wonderful. That was wonderful.
Whatever we have time now. There's much to discuss.
We still have 7 more questions to go.
Oh God. Okay. Okay.
No, but I mean, I guess you don't have time.
No, you have to tell me when the time is up. Huh? Okay.
If we are honest, the time is supposed to be up now, but it's up to you and how much time.
Sure, sure.
Isn't it? It's 1 hour has passed already.
No.
Already?
No, it's
No,
half an
no,
hour.
no, no, half an hour more. Okay.
Oh, half an hour.
Correct. Yeah, I was.
So we still have time.
Yeah. Okay. Directly related to that, what you just discussed now about the Sahasrara and how yogic teachings are teaching that the Sahasrara is the end of the story, so to say, in a way. And how does this teaching actually come together with Ramana Maharshi teaching and others who, for example, Maharshi is teaching that there is this Jivan Nadi, which is like an extension of Sushumna, that actually the Sahasrara is not the end, but the Kundalini is supposed to travel back with that Jivanadi to the spiritual heart, which is not the same as Anahata, as Ramana Maharshi is teaching, but it is like a seed of the consciousness itself. And then Ramana says that only that is the final liberation. So how does that fit together? Is it like, can you say a couple of words just about it?
Yeah. So this is Ramana Maharshi's isolated individual experience. Nowhere else, nobody else, nowhere else in no other system it has been mentioned. This has been Ramana Maharshi's unique, I would say, contribution to this vast literature of spirituality. Right? So, now, it is true that there is one small little nadi coming from the Sahasrara to the right side. But there is no right side, there is no heart. Nobody has a heart on the right. I wish they had done some kind of X-ray and found out if Maharshi had his heart in the right. I'm sure he had it in the left. So he's not talking about the physical heart. He's talking about the feelings, the emotional part. Now here is what I wanted. This controversy about whether the heart is in the right or whether the heart is in the left, whether the heart is the same as the Sahasrara, actually this is a useless and endless controversy. My understanding is like, look, according to the Sufis of the Naqshbandi order, when you say heart center, it covers this entire area. Center, right and left. In fact, in their exercise, which is very closely linked to the teachings of the Zohar, which is a commentary on the Kabbalah, you visualize a ball of light on the top of your head. Then you, with your mind, visualize it and put your hand and bring it down to the heart. Center, this heart, Anahat. Then from from the center, you take it to the left side, the Ida side. And then you cross again and go to the Pingala side. Then you bring the ball again to the center and meditate upon it. And before you finish, you take it back here and let it go. So what I'm trying to say is that there is no point in the technical hair-splitting discussions on whether the heart is here, whether Ramana Maharshi is right. Now, I am prepared to say that Ramana Maharshi did achieve a very high state of spiritual There is no question. I have no question in my mind. And he did it without any formal training. In this birth, at least. We don't know what happened before, right? We know only this birth, generally. So we don't know what happened. So, if that is comfortable for you, you may understand and follow that. But from the traditional yogic point of view of Raja Yoga and Shiva Raja Yoga, the last center, of course, is the Sahasrara. I tend to look at it that way. Although, as I mentioned before, the heart area, it could be here, here or here. Don't worry about that. Is a very important area. Once anyone reaches there, there is no fear of going down. Yes, and it also helps to balance. I have seen people who have a small awareness of the Sahasrara, not fully expanded. And they tend to be more intellectual than loving and emotional. This is also not the right thing to do. There needs to be a balance. So, I cannot deny the fact that the Sahasrara is this center of Shiva. And when you say the meaning of Om Namah Shivaya is actually Shivoham, I'm Shiva. Now, it connects from the Sahasrara. But normally, all human beings, when they say me, they don't say I, they say I. I don't say I.
Exactly.
I don't have a headache, I keep my hand here, but I don't say that I can do I. Who do you think I am? You see the ego?
So why do we put I then in the heart?
Because that is a very important center, without developing which, from where we have the entire feeling. It is known that if a heart is what is it called? Heart surgery? Transplanted, even though the heart doesn't have a brain, you don't see a brain in the heart, the person who had the heart before, most of his characteristics are transported to the person who has taken it. So, now don't think therefore that the brain is the only consciousness, please. The brain is the most important functioning computer in our body system, which processes consciousness. But consciousness is there from the tip of your toe to the top of your head, because every cell has its own consciousness. And among these, the heart area, I'm not going into right or left, the heart area is one of the most important centers of consciousness, which is exactly why I started by saying that here is the balancing point. Once here, there is no fear that you will go down. And then you will only go up. Well, if you enjoy it, you can stay here. And next life you will go up. It's okay, it doesn't matter.
Okay, thank you. Just a second.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Everybody keeps thinking about this problem, you know.
Yeah.
I go to, here I am meditating, doing Ashtanga Yoga, and then I go to Ramana Ashram, nobody is doing any yoga. And where is yoga? It's here. So people get confused. I am saying there is no need to be confused. You can always combine the two.
Yeah. But I'm also thinking that if you take the ox herding pictures,
If you take
the ox herding pictures of Zen or Chan Buddhism,
the pictures,
the ox herding pictures, you know those? There are 10 ox herding pictures that are showing first you are seeing the ox, And
seeing the
you're searching for the tracks of the ox.
of the what?
The ox,
Maybe.
you know, an ox, a bull.
A bull. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I
And
got
and
it,
then
not
then
the-
you find the ox, and then you have to tame the ox.
Yes.
Then you have to ride the ox,
Yes.
and you have to then you end up or these ox herding pictures. They tell the story about the person who gets enlightened in the end. Gets enlightened, but before that he has to learn to tame the ox. It's the mind, and then you at some point the picture number 8 is self is gone, ox is gone, and so here is like very much like Sahasrara. You know, you have fulfilled the path, but there's 2 more pictures. And the last picture is entering into the marketplace with extended hands. And so this is maybe a little bit like what Ramana was talking about, because he was allegedly in what was it called? Sahaja Samadhi. So that is Nirvikalpa Samadhi, but with open eyes, with awareness of the world. And so in the same way, the ox herding picture, the last ox herding picture, is also showing that you are no longer this aloof person sitting on the mountaintop and has forgotten all about self and the world, but is now back in the world, but with extended hands.
Yes. Have you seen any pictures, medieval pictures of Jesus the Christ? How does he stand?
Yeah.
Right? And now I'm going to this little bit. When you have suffered enough in life, even getting into spiritual practice is in a way a little bit of painful thing, because you have to give up certain things which you would enjoy otherwise. You go into it, you're crucified actually. You may wear a crown, but it's made of thorns. You're crucified. May not be connected to what you, but it is connected in some way. There's nothing that is not connected actually. Ask Madame Blavatsky. So, she was a good girl, this Madame Blavatsky. Anyway, so so I forgot. No, I need to write the bull.
About Jesus, open hands, and
No, you see, when you see a medieval picture of the cross and this poor man's, the son of Joseph the carpenter, hanging on there with his nails, the Romans decided that this chap who called himself the king of the Jews, so they put up a board there which says, Jesus Nazareth Rex Judaeum. Jesus Nazareth Rex Judaeum. Now, in the Latin language, J and I have the same letter. Jesus, but what do you read? Jesus Nazareth, you read it as INRI, I-N-R-I. Have you seen the pictures? You read it as I-N-R-I, INRI. According to the Romans, people have usually read it as JNRJ, Jesus from Nazareth, the King of the Jews, Rex Judarum, of the Judas. But actually, since I and J are interchangeable, from our point of view, from the point of view of the teachers of Theosophy, who also were in the Himalayas, and also from the teachings of some of the initiates from that who were in the West, who wore three-piece suits and were not known to be yogis. From their point of view, it actually represents something very, very important. Why this son of Joseph, called Jesus, Isa, in Arabic. It's not Jesus is an English variation from Greek. It's Isa, not Isha Vashyamida, not that. Isa. This Isa, this guy, is actually from the point of view of the initiates coming from all traditions, is not just a human being, but a combination of the spirit and matter, who has been initiated into the mysteries and therefore discovered himself and seen that he is not the body but something more, that he and his father are one, there is no difference. And therefore INRI, if you substitute the J, which is the actual meaning which is there, I, because the two letters are interchangeable in Latin. I is igne. What is igne? Fire. Ignition, when you start the car, igne. Derived from the Sanskrit root agni. Igne, fire. N, natura. What is natura? The world, prakriti. Earth, prithvi. Igne, fire. Natura. Renovat, renewed. Integra, through integration. Which means this being is one who is a combination of the earth being renovated by the fire of the spirit. Which is why in the tradition of the initiates he is referred to as Christos, which means again from the root Krish, Christos, meaning consciousness, expanded consciousness. Yeah, when you reach there, you have nothing to take, you have only to give in the marketplace.
Right. Right.
And you have no laws that can bind you.
Yeah.
From that point of view. Would one preach on a Sabbath? No, you're not supposed to. On a Sabbath, you do nothing, no work, not even preaching. And here is this man preaching on the Sabbath in Jerusalem. And they say, what are you doing? You're breaking the law. And what is the answer? The law was made for man, not man for the law. Why? Hands are open, nothing tight and closed. Okay. So, look at any picture of Ramana Maharshi. There is no picture in which his eyes are closed and meditating. They are all open. You may find a rare, but hardly. Why? Because the inside and the outside have become the same. There is no inside and there is no outside. But I insist that if you have to reach, you have to first go inside. No way out.
Yeah.
You can't do it like that. Recognize the inside before you know that the inside and outside are the same. Okay. In this connection, I know we can't answer all questions, but it's good to do that. Serious people need to listen seriously. So, there was a great king, Janaka, who was supposed to be the father of Sita and the Ramayana, the great Rishi Yajnavalkya. He was a king, but he was also a Rishi, which means he was a wise and holy king, let's say. I don't know how to say this, but he was a king. He was also called a Raja Rishi. That means the king of rishis. Also because a king and a rishi, yeah, both. His teacher, guru, was the great rishi sage Yajnavalkya, who is famous in the Upanishads and Vedas. And Yajnavalkya taught him how to go into Samadhi. You know, Samadhi, trance, where you realize your full potential, and so on and so forth. See, even though it's realized here, I am still doing this.
Right. Yeah.
So, when you love people, you hug them like this, right? You don't hit heads together. So, yeah, if you are an expert in karate, you can kill somebody by hitting their head with your head. So, yeah. So Yajnavalkya taught him how to go into higher states of consciousness, Samadhi. So the great king Janaka was very proud of his achievements of Samadhi. So one day one sage walks in. His name is Ashtavakra. Now the meaning of the word Ashtavakra means bent in 8 places. But I don't know, maybe he was a cripple, we don't know. But he walks in and he says, he's a great sage, so he says to King Janaka, so now you have attained freedom? He said, yes. Yajnavalkya has taught you? Yes. How do you do that? He said, wait, goes into Samadhi. And then he comes back. He says, oh, in Samadhi you attained freedom. He said, yes. And now? Now I've come out of it. He said, if there is true freedom, do you go and come out, or are you always in it? Tell me. It's a question, serious question. You are free only in Samadhi, or you're also free when there is no need to go in or come out. Right. That's called Sahaja, actually. Not going in or coming out, but always. Although the preparatory ground has to be laid through going in, I understand. Yeah. But once it is touched, then there is no going in, going out. And then he teaches this very small little text called the Ashtavakra Gita. Now the Ashtavakra Gita, I would not advise people to read until they have gone through the whole process of meditation and understanding and so on, because if you suddenly read only the Ashtavakra Gita, you stop all meditation and you might become atheists. The great sage Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to teach the Ashtavakra Gita only to one person, Swami Vivekananda. Uh-huh. And the moment he heard somebody outside, he used to put it under the pillow and say, Hari, Hari, Ram, Ram. Swamiji said, why? He said, they can't understand this. Watch out. Can we move?
Yes, thank you.
I think it's time now. We have time. I'm sorry I couldn't answer all the 8 questions. Sometimes tomorrow we can pop it up again.
Yes,
okay?
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Can we meditate for a few minutes?
Yes,
please.
Before we move on to tomorrow.
Yes.
And so first we chant Om together 3 times, and then after chanting Om 3 times, we meditate, and when it is over, I am going to say Hari Om Tat Sat, and we open our eyes. Okay? So we are going to chant Om 3 times. Sit comfortably. Close your eyes. but we need to close our eyes. Then you can chant actually. Hans, you can start the chant and then everybody chant along for 3 times. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, thank you very much. We'll meet again tomorrow. Special thanks to Lina and Hans for leading the satsang. And then we meet tomorrow. Is that okay?
Yeah,
That's
thank you so
wonderful.
much.
Thank you so much. I can't enjoy your cake.
That's really too bad. Hopefully there comes a chance soon.
Soon technology will improve and you can send the cake to the city.
Now the first flight you can take after COVID, then you come and eat the cake.
Everybody is saying that.
I know, I'm sure they are.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Namaskar.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Okay.